She helped an old woman at the airport, expecting nothing in return. What she didn't know was, someone powerful was watching, and her life was about to change forever. Hello, family. Welcome to Storytime Ederly. Kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more interesting stories. Like and share this video to your friends and loved ones. Thank you as you do so. Sit back, relax as we dive into the story. It was a gloomy Tuesday afternoon at Heathrow Airport, and the air was thick with the smell of espresso, wet umbrellas, and mild panic. Flights were delayed, babies were crying, and the departure board flickered like it had something to hide. Emily Carter, 26, stood awkwardly by a vending machine, jabbing at the buttons that had refused to give her the chocolate bar she desperately needed. Her suitcase had one broken wheel, her blouse was wrinkled from the rain, and she had just returned from the worst job interview of her life. She had mistakenly called the interviewer Dad, spilled water on his desk, and walked out forgetting her own resume. Needless to say, things were not looking up. With a deep sigh, Emily gave up on the vending machine and dragged her suitcase toward her gate. She was halfway there when she noticed an elderly woman struggling to pull her coat over her suitcase while trying to balance a cup of tea and dig through her handbag. The woman looked like she was in her late 70s, with soft white curls, round glasses slipping down her nose, and a bright floral scarf that danced in the air every time she moved. She muttered to herself as she dropped her gloves for the third time. Emily didn't even hesitate. "Excuse me, do you need a hand?" she asked, walking over. The woman looked up a little startled, then smiled. "Oh, bless you, dear. I seem to be losing a battle with gravity today." Emily laughed and knelt down to pick up the gloves and the boarding pass that had slipped between the suitcase wheels. "Here you go. You're flying to Edinburgh?" "That's right," the woman said, accepting the pass and tea. "My name's Margaret Hamilton, but everyone calls me Maggie." "Well, Maggie," Emily said kindly, "let's find your gate together." As they walked slowly through the terminal, Maggie chatted away like they'd known each other for years. She told Emily all about her weekly book club where they mostly gossiped, her son who was always too busy with work, and how she still missed her late husband every time she flew alone. "You remind me of my granddaughter," Maggie said, squeezing Emily's arm. "Except she's allergic to airports." Emily smiled, a little surprised by how much she was enjoying the company. "You're much easier to talk to than most of the people I've met this week." "Bad day." "Bad month," Emily replied with a chuckle. "But you're making it better." They sat down near gate 23, and Emily offered Maggie the half-eaten muffin from her bag. Maggie took it like it was a fancy scone from a five-star cafe and insisted on sharing her tea. What neither of them noticed was the tall man a few seats behind them. He wore a sharp navy blue suit and held a phone in one hand, though he wasn't scrolling. He was watching, listening, smiling quietly. His name was James Hamilton, yes, that James Hamilton, the reclusive tech millionaire, creator of the biggest travel app in Europe, and Maggie's only son. He had come to surprise his mother at the airport, hoping to finally have lunch together before her flight. But instead, he stood back and watched this kind young woman help his mom. Not because she had anything to gain, not because she knew who Maggie was, but simply because she cared. He saw how Emily smiled, even though she looked tired. How she fixed Maggie's scarf. How she laughed easily and leaned in like she was talking to her own family. James pulled out his phone and quietly dialed his assistant. "Harper, I need you to do something," he whispered. "Of course, sir. What is it?" "Find out everything you can about a woman named Emily Carter." His eyes never left her face. "Because I think I just met someone important." James stood still for a moment after the call, watching Emily help his mom finish her tea. Something about her felt different. She didn't rush. She didn't act like she wanted anything in return. She simply cared. Maggie soon stood up and gave Emily a warm hug before heading to board her flight. "Thank you again, dear. You're a bright light in this gloomy airport," she said sweetly. Emily smiled. "Have a safe flight, Maggie." As Maggie disappeared into the boarding tunnel, Emily turned to walk away. She looked around for a sign pointing to the train station. Her bag wobbled behind her, still with the broken wheel, and her curls bounced with every step. That's when James noticed it. Something soft and knitted had fallen onto the floor near the bench where Emily had been sitting. A scarf. It was old, with faded red and cream stripes, and a little worn at the edges. Most people would have ignored it, but James didn't. He picked it up gently and noticed a name tag sewn inside, slightly crooked. Emily C. He smiled. Of course. Without thinking, he started walking fast in the same direction Emily had gone. Then he jogged. Then he actually ran. People stared. He didn't care. "Excuse me, Miss Carter," he called out. Emily stopped and turned, looking surprised. Yes?" James reached her, slightly out of breath. "You dropped this," he said, holding out the scarf. Her face lit up. "Oh my gosh. I didn't even notice. Thank you so much. This scarf means everything to me." James tilted his head, curious. "Why's that?" "It was my grand's," Emily said quietly. "She knitted it before she passed away. I wear it when I'm nervous." "Silly, right?" "Not silly at all," James said. "It's nice. Like a lucky charm." Emily smiled and took the scarf carefully, almost like it might disappear. "Thanks again, James," he said quickly. "James Hamilton." She didn't react. Clearly, she didn't know who he was. That made him smile a little more. "Nice to meet you, James. And thank you for chasing me down." There was a short, quiet pause. She was clearly about to say goodbye. He didn't want her to. "Actually," James said quickly, "can I buy you a coffee?" Emily blinked. "Sorry, what?" "A coffee," James said again. "To thank you for helping my mom back there. You didn't have to, but you did." Emily laughed lightly. "That was your mom?" He nodded. "Yup. Maggie Hamilton. Kind, dramatic, allergic to cheap tea." "She was wonderful," Emily said. "Made me feel like I mattered." "Well," James replied with a small grin, "you do." Emily looked at him for a moment. He seemed kind. And honest. And definitely a little nervous, even though he wore a very expensive-looking watch. "All right," she said, surprising herself. "One coffee. But I'm warning you, I drink it with way too much sugar." They found a quiet cafe near the corner of the terminal. The place smelled like cinnamon and burnt espresso beans. They sat at a small table with chipped paint and talked like they weren't strangers at all. Emily told James about the job interview disaster, how she tripped over a chair and called the manager Dad. James laughed so hard, he nearly choked on his coffee. James shared about his mum going viral last year for putting her feet in a hotel bidet. Emily nearly snorted milk out of her nose. There was something easy about the moment. Soft. Unexpected. When it was time to go, Emily stood and picked up her bag. "Thanks for the coffee. And the scarf. And the laughter. I needed it." James hesitated, then pulled a sleek black business card from his wallet. "Here. Just in case you ever want to chat again. Or need a muffin. Or forget your scarf." Emily took it with a smile. "Thanks." But as she walked toward the train station, her phone buzzed. She pulled it out, juggling her suitcase and her scarf, and in that moment, the business card slipped from her fingers. It floated down between two vending machines, completely out of sight. Emily never even noticed. And by the time she got on the train, the card was gone. The train rocked gently as Emily stared out the window, her scarf tucked snugly around her neck. Outside, the countryside passed in a blur of green fields and gray clouds. She smiled quietly to herself, thinking about the strange, lovely day she'd just had. A kind old woman. A surprise coffee with a sweet, funny man named James. A small moment that felt special. She reached into her bag to look at the business card he'd given her. Maybe she'd message him after all. But her smile faded. It wasn't there. She turned her bag upside down on her lap. Keys, lip balm, a half-eaten cereal bar, a crumpled tissue. No card. Panic hit. No, no, no. She checked her pockets. Her shoe. Her scarf. Even inside the cereal bar wrapper. Nothing. The card was gone. Back in London, James sat at his desk, staring at his phone. Still no message from Emily. His mother had already flown off, texting him a heart emoji and a photo of a cat she saw at the airport. Meanwhile, James couldn't stop thinking about Emily. He hadn't felt this way about someone in years. Maybe never. And now he had no last name, no number, and no idea how to find her. He stood up and said to himself, "Well, James, I guess it's time to cheat a little." He called his assistant. "Harper, remember that girl I mentioned?"
Yes.
"The airport girl."
Right.
"I gave her my card, but she didn't call. I think she lost it. Can you, quietly, try to find out more about her?" Emily, mid-20s, curly hair, scarf, maybe lives in Manchester. "She helped my mum. Should be enough." Harper sighed. "You do know there are probably 100 Emilys in Manchester, right?" James smiled. "Then we better start now." 3 days passed. Emily sat in her small flat, her laptop open with 12 tabs of job sites and none of them promising. She'd been rejected twice, and one place asked her to bring her own desk. She sighed, flopping back onto her couch. Then her phone buzzed. New email, private assistant job opportunity. "Dear Miss Carter, we recently came across your name and believe you may be a good fit for a personal assistant role with one of our high-profile clients. The job includes flexible hours, travel, and a generous salary. If you're interested, please report to Hamilton Enterprises, London. Kind regards, L. Jennings, Executive Assistant." Emily sat up straight. Hamilton Enterprises? Wasn't that James's last name? "No way," she whispered. She stared at the email for a long time. Was this a coincidence? Or was it him? Her heart raced as she packed her bag. She didn't know if this was a job interview, a trap, or the start of something bigger. But one thing was certain. She had to find out. Emily stood outside the tall glass doors of Hamilton Enterprises, holding her breath. The building was sleek and shiny, filled with people who wore expensive watches and walked like they were always late for something important. She stared at the sign again just to be sure. Hamilton Enterprises. This was real. Taking a deep breath, she walked inside. "Hello, can I help you?" the woman at the front desk asked with a perfect smile. Yes. "I got this email," Emily said, showing her phone. "About a job interview." The receptionist checked something on her computer. "Ah, yes. Miss Emily Carter. Please go up to the top floor. Someone is waiting for you." Emily nodded, feeling her stomach twist. Top floor? Why the top? She stepped into the elevator and pressed the shiny silver button. As the doors closed, her reflection stared back at her. Wide eyes, nervous smile, scarf wrapped neatly around her neck like armor. What if it's him? What if it's just a weird job? What if I trip again and call someone Dad?
Ding.
The elevator doors opened, and there he was.
James.
Standing by a large window, wearing a navy blue sweater, holding 2 coffees, and looking completely surprised. "Emily." She blinked. "Wait, you sent that email?" He laughed nervously. "Sort of. I didn't want to scare you off, so I had someone else send it. I wasn't sure you'd come." "I almost didn't," Emily admitted, stepping inside. "But I had questions." James handed her one of the coffees. "I thought you might." They sat in a cozy corner of the office, far from the busy desks. The view behind them stretched across all of London. Emily sipped her coffee. It had the exact amount of sugar she liked. "Okay," she said finally. "Why did you bring me here?" James looked down, then met her eyes. "Because I lost your number. I thought I'd never see you again. But I couldn't stop thinking about you." Emily's heart did a tiny backflip. "I also ran a background check," he added quietly. "Backflip canceled." "You what?" "I just wanted to make sure you were real," James said quickly. "I've had bad experiences. People pretending to be something they're not. Using me for money. Fame." Emily stood up, annoyed. "And what, you thought I was like that?"
No.
"That's the thing, Emily. You were different. You helped my mom without knowing who she was. You were kind. And honest. I panicked." Emily crossed her arms. "And you didn't think to just ask me? Like a normal person?" James sighed. "You're right. I messed up." Before she could say more, the office door burst open. Emily. Both of them turned. It was Andrew.
Tall. Tan.
dressed in a tight shirt that screamed "I go to the gym and tell people about it." Emily's face dropped. "What are you doing here?" "You're working here?" "For him," Andrew said, pointing at James like he was a lost gym membership. James stood slowly. "Who are you?" "I'm Andrew, her ex-fiancé." Emily groaned. "We're not doing this here." Andrew laughed bitterly. "Of course not. Why would you want to talk about how you disappeared 2 weeks before our wedding?" Emily stepped forward. "Because you cheated on me with my best friend, Andrew." James's eyes widened. "You what?" "She's lying," Andrew said quickly. "We were on a break." "We were engaged," Emily snapped. "There are no breaks in engagements." James pointed to the door. "Okay, I think you've said enough. You can leave." Andrew narrowed his eyes. "You think she's honest? Ask her why she really left Manchester. Ask her what she did for money last year." "Get out," James said sharply, "before I call security." Andrew looked like he wanted to argue, but then turned and stormed out, slamming the door behind him. Silence. Emily sat down slowly, wiping her face with her hands. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of that to happen." James sat beside her. "You don't have to explain anything to me. But if you want to, I'll listen." She was quiet for a moment. "I was broke. I was heartbroken. I took a cleaning job at a hotel just to survive. I shared a flat with 2 strangers and ate instant noodles for dinner. I didn't tell anyone because I was embarrassed." James nodded. "And still you helped my mom at the airport like she was royalty." Emily gave a small, tired smile. "She was the only person who treated me like I was more than a mess." James took her hand gently. "You're not a mess, Emily. You're the strongest person I've met." She looked at him, surprised. "You're not angry?" she asked softly. "Only at Andrew," he joked. Emily laughed. "He did have an annoying face." James smiled. "Still does." They sat together for a moment, holding hands and sipping coffee. The air felt warmer now. Lighter. Like something broken was starting to heal. Outside, it started to rain. But inside, it felt like spring. A few months passed. Emily was now working at Hamilton Enterprises, not as a personal assistant, but as head of community outreach, a job James created just for her. She helped people find support, jobs, and training through the company's charity wing. And she was brilliant at it. The office loved her. Maggie loved her more. And James, well, James was completely in love. Every Friday, they met for coffee in the same quiet cafe near the airport where they'd first talked. Emily always ordered a sweet latte. James always ordered whatever she ordered. But even with all the laughter and love, Emily sometimes wondered, where was this going? She didn't want to be just another chapter in James's life. One rainy evening, as they walked together down a quiet London street, James stopped suddenly in front of a small park filled with twinkling fairy lights. "What is this?" Emily asked, smiling. James took a deep breath. "A question." She looked at him curiously. He pulled something from his coat pocket. It was the scarf. Her grand's old, faded, red and cream scarf, freshly cleaned, neatly folded, and tied with a little ribbon. Emily gasped. "I thought I lost that again." "You did," James said. "You dropped it at the office last week. I had it cleaned. Thought you'd want it for this moment." She tilted her head. "What moment?" James smiled nervously, then reached into his coat pocket again, this time pulling out a small, dark blue box. "James," Emily whispered, her heart beating faster. He opened it. Inside was a beautiful silver ring, simple and elegant, just like her. "I don't have a long speech," James said. "I just know you're the one. I knew it the day you helped my mum. I knew it when you laughed at my bad jokes. I knew it when you didn't care who I was. I don't want to spend another day wondering if I'll lose you again." He knelt down in the middle of the lighted park, holding the ring and the scarf. "Emily Carter, will you marry me?" Emily stared at him, shocked. Then she started laughing. Not the mean kind of laugh, but the happy sob laugh you let out when everything feels just too perfect to be real. "Of course, you big idiot," she said, wiping a tear from her cheek.
Yes.
"I will." James stood up, slipped the ring on her finger, and wrapped the scarf around both of them. They kissed under the soft rain and fairy lights, wrapped in a scarf that had once belonged to a grandmother and now belonged to something much bigger. 1 year later, the wedding was small, beautiful, and filled with laughter. Maggie cried more than anyone else and gave a speech that included 4 jokes, 2 poems, and 1 story about James wetting the bed at age 6. Emily wore a simple dress, and around her shoulders, her grand scarf. Guests from all over smiled as James whispered something in Emily's ear. "Hey," he said softly, "you never did tell me what you thought when I ran after you with that scarf at the airport." Emily grinned. "Honestly? Yeah. I thought you were a scarf thief." James laughed so hard he snorted, and as the music played and people danced and the stars came out above them, Emily held James's hand and thought, "A bad day at the airport led to the best days of my life." That brings us to the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you do, kindly subscribe to my YouTube channel for more videos. Thanks for watching.